Hey everybody, this is Kyle again. Um, another video for the kind of series Kyle Talks, where I basically just talk about whatever I feel like, uh, whatever's on my mind, whatever I've been thinking about maybe that day. So today is 4/29/2019, uh, and the subject for today is why I left the Navy. Um, so. Okay, it's. I, I guess I should say why I joined to begin with. Start with that. Uh, when I I had moved out of either of my parents' places. I got in a place with my friends Nathan, Micah, and Simon. It was like my first apartment. I was super excited, and I lived there for a time with them. And but at some point, I got super depressed, and maybe not like super depressed, but it was definitely like a depression of like feeling like I had no purpose and not knowing where I was meant to be, and not having a path, so to speak, right? So I one day I I pray to God. I'm out on the balcony, and I'm smoking a cigarette, and I'm praying to God, and I say, "Hey man, whatever you got, whatever you want from me, whatever you want me to do, wherever you want me to go, I will go. If you want me to be the world's best fry cook, hey man, I'll do it. I surrender. I give myself to you. I need a path. To I need to be told what to do essentially, because I don't think that whatever I've chosen has gone right. I don't think that whatever plans I had made for myself have really panned out. Anything at all, it didn't matter, you know. And I think it was either immediately, I can't really remember quite, but I don't want to say it was immediate. I think it was the next day, the very next day. I had this overwhelming feeling to join the military, and it lasted for easily a month. Like it did not go away. And after the first week, I was like, okay, I guess this is what you want me to do. I mean, I don't think that I'm cut out for it, but I mean, I said I surrender. I said that I'd do whatever you told me to do, or at least I try to. So I'll do it. I'll do it. And it was then I started looking into the military. I asked friends, family. I would Google everything. Like I was like, okay, so what kind of job would I want first of all? What do I want to do? Um, and I couldn't even decide that. So it was like, and not only that, I couldn't decide on what branch. And I still prayed. I prayed. I was like, what branch do you want me to go into? Like, what job do you want me to have in the military? No answers, right? There were no specifics. And I actually had a conversation with my dad, and he had said, I think, actually no, it was actually Jared Briggy. I had a conversation with him, and I told him how I was struggling with like deciding, and he actually said, I think whatever you choose to do is the right choice, And he kind of said it in this way. I can't exactly remember how he, like verbatim what he said, but he basically said, God said, like, here's this, right? Like, you have all this. You can choose, like, how you want to do this one thing. If you want to be in the Navy, if you want to be in the Air Force, if you want to, the Marines, whatever, right? You decide that for yourself, but I know that you just need to go to this. And, because, God's the God of free will, so surely he had to have left something open to my decision making, right? Or decently open ended. He was just kind of giving me a nudge in the right direction, and that's all I needed, so to speak. Um, well, I talked to the Marines, blah, 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 and I'm like, I just don't think I'd be physically cut out for it, because I wasn't in great shape, to be honest. Even for the Navy, like any of the branches, I was not in good shape. Um, and then, my boot camp, uh, You know, the guys I went through boot camp with would probably easily tell you that. They're like, yeah, I don't know how good of a runner he is. Actually, I'll get to that. But you know, and so I go out and I try to talk to all the branches. I get a feel for them. I'm like, I learn a little bit more about them, and I finally settle on the Navy. So I talked to them, and you know, I wanted to be honest, right? And so I had a high ASVAB score of a 92, and they had they had said, well, yeah, we want you to be a nuke, you know. And when I was honest to them about like what I had done in my life, for instance, I had smoked weed prior to this point. I had done, I had tried acid or LSD. So I had done these things, right? And so they said, okay, well that disqualifies you, right? And then after a while, I was just like, well, then maybe that's just not the right path, you know? Like if I'm not doing the best of what I can do for whatever, right? I don't feel like I'd be giving myself to as much as what I can. And so I stopped talking to the Navy for a little while, and then you know, I talked to the Marines after that. I think it was the Army, then the Navy, then the Marines. Uh, I couldn't really get a hold of the Air Force, like at all. Like I think I sent them my ASVAB score or whatever one time, and then they wanted to get in touch with me, but I think by that point, like it was like months after I had sent it to them, that I had actually um, already committed to the Navy. So it was like a weird. Air Force was weird. Got to work better at that, man. I know that there's only like 2 recruiters for like the entire state of Texas, whatever. But um, you know, I don't. It's just whatever. So you know, but then I go, but when I go back to the Navy after talking to the Marines, um, but a different location, right? Because I know that like, hey, maybe if I just talk to them and just go redo it, they'll do paperwork differently, and I'll just won't be honest with them this time, whatever, right? So I tell them like, nope, never smoked, blah blah. It's like, really? And I'm like, yep, really. And there's a woman, you know, like a woman petty officer. She was like, really? Like you could piss in a cup right now, and I go like nothing would pop. And I'm like, yep, not at all, 100%. I will do it for you right now. Which of course I don't regularly smoke weed, so or I hadn't at that time, and I mean I still don't now, but so it wouldn't be in my system anyway. But I. You know, so they started doing the paperwork, everything was getting ready, blah blah. I was going through the motions, yada yada. They're like, "Hey, we want you to be a nuke." I'm like, "Cool, I'll be a nuke." Um, like I'm down with that. They would like monitor my weight. They're like, "Hey, you need to lose weight," you know, all this other stuff. And so I'd work on that, and I was just basically just gung ho about it at that point. However, at one point, my recruiter, he tells me like, "Hey, yeah, so we're gonna try and pull the files from the other office or whatever, and we'll get you set up." And I was like, "Oh shit, no, don't do that, please do not do that," because I thought that would ruin my chances again. Anyway, so like you know, I'm talking to him, and you know, he's like, "Hey, you want to go smoke a cig?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'm down." So we go outside and like to this back area behind the office, and we're smoking a cig, and I was like, "Man, I gotta tell you something." He was like, "Ah, shit, what?" Like he was worried I was gonna say something like I killed somebody or something, like something that would just really disqualify me, because he was like super gung ho, because you know nukes are hard to find for some reason, even though my like there were 8 of them in my boot camp division, whatever. Um, so I he I told him, look, man, when you pull up those files, you're gonna see that I've smoked weed and I've done LSD. And he was like, "Oh shit. Wait, were you ever arrested for it?" And I was like, "No, like I'm not that stupid." And he was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Then that's just coming straight out. I'll just edit that shit out. That's fine. Like no problem." And so I thought that was partly of God watching my back. He's like, "Yes, I really want you to do this. I want you to keep going." Like, and oh, and another thing too was before I told him that I had prayed. I prayed to him on my way to the office actually, because he had told me that he was going to pull up the information like the last time I visited. And so I'm coming in and I'm like, man, just what do I do? Do I be honest? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Blah, 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 blah. You know, and the only answer I felt like I got back, like I kind of felt it in my chest, was like, be honest, be honest, no matter what. And so I was like, okay, and that's why I told him about it before he could pull it up and see it, and it worked out. It got like I ended up going to the Navy. At the time, I was working at Target, and I had about 6 months before I left until they basically said, okay, no, you're actually leaving in a week. Get your shit in order. Like, do whatever you got to do. And I was like, oh, okay. I will drop like everything randomly. So I quit my job like literally the next day. I started like packing my stuff. I started, organizing everything, cleaning my room, whatever. I planned a party that a lot of my friends came to, like a going away party. You know, I even hung out with two other recruits that I knew from the office. We cut our hair all the way down. You know, it was like a symbolic, and we did it at one of their going away parties, and then I had mine basically a day or two before I left. I got to see a lot of people that I worked with, a lot of close friends, like Shannon, Nathan, Dave, uh, whole nine yards, right? A whole bunch of people. And then I leave. You know, my mom and I'm pretty sure my sister was there too to kind of send me off on the bus, and then I go to the airport. I fly out, take a bus there, and then we go out and we go through boot camp. Um, so basically, literally immediately, they removed the phones. I couldn't call anybody because nobody would pick up, or like they give you a chance to call somebody, and I couldn't reach anybody to say goodbye, or hey, I made it or whatever. Then after, we do the piss tests. We do they give us it's like a whole like 12-hour thing of like, here we're gonna go do the medical test. You're gonna get your blood drawn. You're gonna get piss tests. You're gonna get your uniform, like not your uniform, but like you're gonna get like your sweats and your PT gear and like your just yellow shirt and shorts, and you're gonna get your underwear. You're gonna put all of your clothes into a box and have it closed up until you can, and that's gonna be sent home. Like your phone, everything is gone. And they keep you awake. I think it was for 2 days, or was it like a one night? I don't know. I can't really remember. Like I was up for a really long time, and I was delirious by the end of it. So they basically keep you up awake through either a night or like 2 nights. I can't remember how that works, but pretty sure it's just a night. Whatever. But so they keep you awake. You label all your stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. These are called P days, right? Processing days. At least I think that's what it stands for. That's what I thought it did. And like I am delirious. Like they're like, sign your name on this, and I'm just like, guys, how long has this been? What? And I'm just out of it. I can't tell what time it is anymore. It feels like I'm in a lucid dream. It was like I was fucked up from that lack of sleep. Um, but anyway, no. So we get these like fake petty officers. I mean, they're petty officers, right? But they're not our instructors. I'll probably have to make like a whole video about boot camp by itself because there's a lot that happens, even if it's only like 2 months and stuff. I can probably go into greater detail, and some of my memory's fuzzy on it now, uh, for reasons I might end up explaining in this video. But as boot camp progressed, uh, I was slowly losing my memory. Um, I couldn't remember the names or faces of the people who were at my going away party. I couldn't remember anything about them. Um, the only memory I could really hold on to would probably be my parents, and even then, that was getting fuzzy. Like I had forgotten my childhood memories. I had forgotten really anything that happened in high school. I had I'd basically forgotten pretty much my entire life. Like, I did not know who I was. I mean, I did, but like, I didn't. The only memories I could actually barely hold on to was like I had pictures that my mom had given me of like me and her and like me and Nathan and whoever. But then like all I knew was that his name was Nathan and I could see his face. Like that was it. That was all I had. And slowly, over time, and this was like maybe the first 2 or 3 weeks of boot camp, like that I had lost my memory. 3 to 4 weeks, I lost my memory. Around week 5 or 6, my memory was coming back. And prior to me going into the Navy or whatever, I had 2 different concussions at 2 different times. One of them caused me to forget like 6 months of my life. So I lost, and not only that, it had damaged whatever other small memories that I had in the past. So I didn't have the best memory to begin with of certain things. However, as I was getting my memories back, which doctors said that it was basically my acclimation to the stress level of boot camp, and they like as I was getting them back, I actually got memories that I had forgotten from those concussions. I had actually remembered certain things, like images, vivid, like accurate. Like I could tell you the color of somebody's shirt. I could tell you exactly the words that they said. I could tell you like everything about it. And there was about several memories, and then just it started becoming all of the memories where it was just like vividly detailed. Like I could smell like what the wood in my old original house smelled like. Like it was crazy. Like my memories were just like way better than ever. Um, except for one thing, was that I could not remember how I felt, and that they were in third person. So I don't know how that works, but uh, my issue with remembering, it was almost like every memory was like a film reel or a clip, and I was some sort of weird spectator to it. Um, and I didn't have any of the emotional attachments that I knew were there because in my memories I know what I had thought, like almost verbatim. Like I knew what I was thinking in that moment. Uh, like, oh, if I do this, blah blah. Okay, I'll say this so that this person does this or something like that, or just thoughts are like, oh my god, I really don't like this, and even though I was acting differently, stuff like that, and I I didn't understand what was happening, and I can actually probably link it to one particular situation. I had gotten a job working at the church because I was like super philosophical or whatever, uh, and I wanted that job because I was like, hey, cool, I get to work in the church. Well, lo and behold, I'm just fucking cleaning the bathrooms. So, wow, that's awesome. So I'm cleaning the bathrooms one day, and I meet this one recruit who is like on his last week. I think it was like week 8, one of his last weeks. And I asked him, I was like, man, how do you do it? Like any tips or whatever? And he said, yeah, just imagine that you're never leaving this place. Everything gets so much easier. Just like feel like you're never gonna leave. You'll be set. And I think that was the moment that like my mind just clicked, and that like just whatever stress, pressure, whatever, because I've had anxiety before, I was living with anxiety and living with depression and stuff like that. So whatever stress level that had peaked just like shot up, I guess, with my brain, and so it just did the switch where it was like, okay, like complete disassociation from your past life. That doesn't matter. I can't focus on that right now. I need to focus on this. I can't give a shit about what had happened in the past or anyone who existed in that. Like this is my life now, right? And so yeah, so then that was probably the moment that my mind brought all the memories back, but they were all in third person. And then boot camp got way easier. It was way less stressful. The kid was right. Like, you know, it was not as hard as it used to be. Um, you know, so anyway, flash forward, I graduate. I get to see my family, and the again, it was like this surreal, like, do I know you? Like, right. I mean, we were writing letters. You know, we talked about some stuff, but do I like know you? Because I don't feel you. Like, I don't. This whatever connection that you feel is not there for me. You know, and when they handed me my phone, which I'm sure this probably happened to most people with the phones, but because once you stop using it so much and you lose the habit, it feels like, whoa, what's this? You know, but I was literally looking at my phone and I was thinking, like, what's the point of this? Like, why do I need this? What purpose does this serve? You know what I mean? Like, very robotic. I was like, explain the utility of this device. You know what I mean? Like, uh, and it felt weird in my hand. I could like it was this really uncomfortable feeling of like, why am I holding this thing? And then they're like, yeah, just call Nathan or whatever. So I called Nathan. I'm like, hey man, I'm out of boot camp. Blah blah. I'll talk to you later. Uh, and like when we went to the hotel, I took a shower. And I took a long shower because our showers were only like maybe a minute, maybe 30 seconds long. Uh, and I got to take a long shower. I got to walk around in my underwear. Like I kind of just walked around in my underwear. And I like just sat down on the couch in my underwear. And I'm like, oh my God, I can sit down. Like I can actually sit down on something that's not like at food. You know what I mean? Like not without food in front of me. Not only that, I can walk around without my socks on. I can, or my shoes on, and like I can, you know, all these weird things. It was like a new world had opened up to me that I thought never existed. I didn't understand how it felt to just walk barefoot or like to sit down without food in front of you, um, or to be like half naked, you know, uh, and do these things. It was so weird. It was the same feeling of the phone, but I actually enjoyed it because you know it was like freedom. It was like this weird, not necessarily freedom, but like I don't know. It was a weird experience. And music, listening to music, that was also life changing, basically. Anyway, so I go back. We eventually fly out. I go to Charleston. Um, uh, and when we get there, you know, we get greeted by these three petty officers, and I'm like, petty officer, where do you want me? And the guys are like, don't call me fucking petty officer. God damn it. Look, I just got these fucking crows. Okay? Don't. I get it. Y'all are from boot camp. I get it. But, like, I didn't earn this shit really, like, that much. Like, I'm new. It feels weird. Just don't do it. Like, whatever. And then we would walk on the right side of the sidewalk, and then they were like, dude, or we would do the pivot, the I don't know how to describe it, drill turns. I don't know what you call it. But they were like, stop, stop, stop. You're a normal person. You can walk on grass. You can walk normally. You can go how you want to walk, right? So they were explaining that to us, and I was just like, oh, okay. Um, Explain the rules, whatever. We're nuclear training school. But so probably have to make another video about that too, because this is getting long already. But the reason I left was that as I was spending a little more and more time at this training school, my depression was skyrocketing, my anxiety skyrocketing, and I wanted to say that it was the schooling, the training, the PT, all of it together. Like for instance, this was my average week, my average day. To kind of put this into context, I'd wake up at 5:30, probably sooner, probably around 5. I would get dressed in my PT clothes. Um, then I would make my bed perfectly, make sure everything was clean perfectly. Then I would go out. We'd do PT in the morning for an hour. I'd come back. I would take a quick shower, shave, get dressed in my daily uniform, whatever that might be, which we were told like ahead of time what that would be. Um, be inspection ready. So buttons, whatever, everything's set, everything's good to go. Clean my room again, not like the whole room, but like tidy up what I messed up or whatever, put clothes away, yada yada yada. Then leave. Make sure it was clean and my whole room had to be clean and inspection ready when I left. So then I left. I'd march in to the school hall. Probably, I think we had to be in there. Let's see, by I had to be like standing ready to march in at like 7. So that basically gave me that's basically like, so 5:30 to 6:30 was PT, then from 6:30 to 7 was me showering, shaving, and getting dressed and making sure everything was tidy. Then walking into the schoolhouse. So then we would have school basically until 1600. We would have a lunch break. We'd have like a 30-minute lunch break or an hour-long lunch break, something like that. I think it was just 30 minutes. Where you just eat your food real quick, go back in, march back in, and then stay until 1600. And now normally, like, so 4 o'clock, right? So 4 p.m. Like the school day's over, right? Like normally you're like, okay, cool. Like that seems okay. Like college students kind of do that, and I'm like, yeah, that'd be okay. And we're only learning like 1 or 2. We only have like 1 or 2 classes, but it's like kind of condensed. So within the first week of our math class, it was essentially the entirety of a semester of college algebra. So like imagine that condensed level of information being shoved into you in those few hours, which for a lot of the guys it was not a problem, but I'm like not good at math, so that really, and I didn't actually do as bad as some other people as far as the test was concerned that we had at some point, and uh, and then we would it wasn't done then yet, so then we'd go eat dinner where we could wherever based on what our freedom or liberties were allowed. Then we would have to go back into the schoolhouse and study for about 2.5 hours minimum. And so we had assigned study hours that you had to meet each day. So it's like you had to study for those hours. It didn't matter if you even needed it or not. You had to like sign in and then sign out. Well, because I sucked at math, I stayed a lot more than 2.5 hours. Pretty much my whole first week I stayed till 11 p.m. Then I'd get home or to my barracks. I'd shower, whatever. Then I would clean and then repeat all the way until Saturday. Sundays you had off, but you would most likely use that to study too. So that was my life pretty much for the next few months. And I wanted to say that it was that, but the problem wasn't that. The problem was that my memories had fucked me up a lot more than I thought they did when I was first getting out of boot camp, because it started building up where I did not feel like I was who I was. I felt like I was born in boot camp, and I did not. And these memories were somebody else's because they were all in like third person, or I didn't have any emotional attachment to anybody in the past. I felt like I was trapped. I felt like I didn't know who I was. It was like a whole slew of things. I literally felt like a different person who had just stolen this person's life. That I was just implanted here for some reason. And that got really hard, and that's when my depression and my anxiety started skyrocketing. And any little thing, any little failure, if I got a question wrong, it would upset the crap out of me. Any sort of failure or shortcoming on my end, as far as like performing as a Navy sailor, that it weighed heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier on my body. And we had to do a psych test, and then basically I was like red flagged on multiple fronts. Um, and then I got to talk to a psychiatrist, and I was like, yeah, no, I feel like why am I here? And I got pretty suicidal. Um, uh, yeah, uh, the pain got rough. It how I described it to some people was that it felt like I was on fire and I was walking through gasoline rain, and that's what it felt like to just walk from one place to another, like leaving my barracks to go get food. It felt like I was on fire. It was a consistent pain. The only release I had was when I was asleep. Uh, of course, I would make micro failures throughout the day, like everybody does. Like, oh, I forgot this little thing, whatever. But then that just was, they were not micro anymore. They were heavy, um, like bean bags being shot at you, or me specifically. I I was back to feeling like I didn't have purpose because I didn't know why I was there to begin with. Even though I had the memory vividly of um, me praying, uh, thinking that I had a feeling, but I did not have that feeling. I no longer had the motivation to actually be in the Navy. I didn't see the point. Um, I, you know, anyway, so I was suicidal. My chief eventually gets word of it, and I forgot how. I forgot how that happened. Something happened. I can't. Whatever. I don't know. But I basically get sent to a suicide treatment center. Uh, Immediately, actually. They didn't even give me time to go back to my barracks. They just like took me. So I go there, and they basically take all my clothes and stuff. They give me some new ones, and start medication. I'm in like this area where there's multiple rooms, and there's like this open area where there's like tables and stuff. And I'll probably make another video about talking about my time there. Uh, it was a good time. It was interesting. I met a lot of good people. Got to talk with this transgender person. Uh, I say person. That seems so impersonal. Male to female. Whether I think it was pre-op. So before transition. So but they were, I had a long conversation with them, and I actually talked to them about Christianity and stuff like that. And he was like, "Man, I hate Christians." Like yada yada. I was like, "Why? Why do you hate Christians?" And he was just like, "They're so hateful. They're so judgmental." And I was like, "Yeah, but people are stupid. Like people make mistakes. People aren't effective 100% of the time at 100%. So just because they try doesn't mean that they win, or that they succeed at being Christian. Uh, and when there's a hateful Christian talking to you, you need to tell them this. And I told them about one of my favorite verses in the Bible, where Jesus is asked, what is the greatest commandment? And he says there are two great commandments, one like the other. I'm paraphrasing. So, and he says one like the other. The first is to love thy God with all thy heart, mind, and body and spirit. Um, the second is to love thy neighbor as thyself. All of the laws and all of the prophets hang on these two commandments. And I told them to tell them that, because when they preach hate and they try to hate somebody, that is not Christianity. That is not what God put you there for. That is not what God asks of you. And anyway, so I had this conversation with him. I kind of helped him feel a little bit better about Christianity. Maybe not the people who had wronged him, but surely maybe not coating everyone with one generalized brush where like, oh, all Christians are bad because I experienced a few rotten eggs. Anyway, I met a lot of good people there. I'll talk about that later. Still in contact with a few to this day. I consider them really close friends. Callie, Austin, Ryan. Uh, uh, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot, but uh, I I was then told that by nurses and doctors and psychologists and whatever that they believed that it was like PTSD. That when I went from a low stress situation of like just not having a difficult job, laissez-faire life as a civilian, to the highest stress that I've ever experienced in my life, to suddenly getting my freedoms back, and like being able to play video games or be able to relax, uh, was like this huge, like boom boom, like shock to my mind, and it couldn't handle it. It just couldn't handle it, and I hate talking about this because it in and of itself makes me feel weak. It makes me feel that I was not good enough. It feels like a massive failure, even though there was nothing I could have done to do anything about it. I pushed myself physically to pass the PT tests. I pushed myself, my mind, to try and get past the depression and anxiety, to pass those tests, those math tests. I was doing everything I could to not fail, but my mind ultimately won. Um, and so after the suicide treatment center, I get to come back. Um, However, I can no longer be a nuke because of the suicidal ideation. So I'm just kind of staying in the barracks until they move me. And I go talk to the psychologist, the Navy psychologist that I've been working with ever since the psychology test, the one I got red flagged for. And he said, like, well, you can stay in the Navy. We can just get you medicated, see if it gets better. Because I was already on medication. I've been on medication since the suicide ideation, suicide treatment center, and it was weird too because I wasn't depressed or anxious inside the treatment center at all. Like I felt fine, and a lot of them said that it was like, and I even told the doctor, I was like, I'm really worried that without all the stress of life, that my mind feels like everything's okay. But that as soon as I get out into the real world, it's going to be like a heavy weight landing back on me, because it recognizes that the threat is back. So anyway, so I'm on medication. It's not really doing anything at all, and it still hasn't to this day. Like it helps with depression and anxiety. Like I feel generally better in a mood, but I still have like my identity. I looked it up. It's like dissociative identity disorder. No doctor has ever prescribed that to me. I'm not saying that that's what I have definitively. I just read up on it, and that's basically what I have. Like that's kind of what I feel like I am very disassociative from my past. I do not feel like the old me is me. I feel like that was literally somebody else. Different life. Completely different person. I have nothing to do with them. They were not my choices. That sort of thing. Have no feelings. I have no emotional connection to anyone in my past. So anyway, but or he says, and then the psychologist says, you can go home. It'll be a medical discharge. Of course, we'll leave it open-ended. So if you ever do get better and decide to come back to the Navy, you can. And so I sat there and I talked to him for a little bit longer, and I told him I think I'm just going to leave. And I explained to him why. I said, I feel like it would be a disservice not to try and fix this because I felt something was wrong. I felt something was deeply wrong with me, with my existence, with who I am, because I felt that I had stolen this person's life. I felt that I existed for no other reason other than like maybe his mind was too weak, and I was born out of that necessity to be a little bit something more. I don't know, because I mean I still was dealing with the depression and anxiety like a freaking freight train. Uh, Other things too is that when I would have like flashbacks to memories, and just prior to the Navy, and it was almost like reliving that moment entirely. Uh, uh, so it would throw me off really deeply. It still does. I still get sometimes episodes of like where I just like flash through moments of my life that like I don't feel are mine, and I still have to this day issues with my disassociativeness. Uh, so I came back home in the hopes of reattaching to my life, in genuine hopes that the old me would kind of spring up out of me, kind of like grow like weeds from the concrete. That has not happened uh, at all. Uh, there have been times where I thought that I did have emotions back from like past uh, say affections, but after a long contemplation, it was simply the fact that I wanted them to be there. I wanted to feel that what I had felt before, and they were just ghosts of some lingering desperation to get the old me back. And um, instead, I've just slowly, this is one way that I described my friendships to people, was that it felt like a contract that someone else signed. I felt obligated to be friends with them rather than wanting to be friends with them. And slowly over time, I have made that less of a contract that someone else signed and more of me deciding whether or not I want them in my lives and for what purposes and for what reasons. It used to be where I felt like, okay, well, I'm going to make the best of this friendship because that's probably what the old me wanted, or like that's what uh, you know they they were really good friends with them, so I might be good friends with them too, or weird rationales about why I should be friends with this person or not. This is a really long video, so I'm gonna probably cut it short. But that's basically why I came back home, because I wanted to find myself, or the old me again. I wanted the emotional connections. I wanted to feel like my parents were my parents. I wanted to feel like my friends were my friends, and it has not panned out exactly. So who knows? Who knows? Who knows how that's gonna go? Anyway, I will catch you guys later.